On this special edition of the CBS Evening News from Washington, we remember the nation's 41st president, George H.W. Bush. His remarkable journey from World War II pilot to the White House. His love story with his wife of 73 years. His lifetime of dedication to his country and devotion to family. All starting with the headlines in 60 seconds.
We are a team. We're a united country, and when the going gets tough, we get moving.
The nation mourns the passing of President George Herbert Walker Bush.
He was one of the last true American political heroes.
He passed away in Houston at the age of 94.
President Trump has ordered American flags to be flown at half-staff.
Also, December 5th will be a national day of mourning.
Truly was a wonderful person, a wonderful man.
Americans remember the life and legacy of President H.W. Bush.
The restraint he exhibited is what helped bring the Cold War to an end.
He was so compassionate, funny, smart, and engaged.
And one of his favorite hobbies, skydiving.
Our family has had a front row seat for the most amazing love story.
The Bushes were married for 73 years, longer than any other president and first lady in U.S. history.
I love you, precious, with all my heart.
Cartoonist Marshall Ramsey has drawn a touching work
showing the former president reuniting with his daughter Robin and his wife Barbara.
Good evening, I'm Jeff Glow reporting tonight from Washington, and the nation's capital is preparing for an official farewell to the 41st president, George H.W. Bush. The former president died last night at his home in Houston at the age of 94, 7.5 months after his wife Barbara passed away. The president's body will lie in state at the U.S. Capitol Rotunda from Monday evening until Wednesday, when a state funeral will be held at the National Cathedral. President Trump declared Wednesday a national day of mourning and ordered flags lowered to half-staff for 30 days. Mr. Bush is being remembered for a lifetime of service to his country, from a World War II pilot to a presidency that navigated the end of the Cold War. He wanted Americans, in his words, to be kinder and gentler, 1,000 points of light. We start tonight with Omar Villafranca in Houston.
Outside of President George H.W. Bush's Houston home, mourners paid their respects, leaving flowers and hanging an American flag. At a statue near downtown, Sean Cunningham was one of many Houstonians who came to honor the late president.
He was a good man, really represented, I think, all the qualities that the country represents or should represent.
President Bush died at his home last night. His health had been diminishing in the last few days. He was surrounded by family. His last words were to his son, former President George W. Bush. They spoke on the phone. The elder Bush told him, "I love you too." He took his last breath at 10:10 p.m. Condolences soon poured in from leaders around the world, from the United Kingdom to the Netherlands and Russia. Bill Clinton, who beat Bush in the 1992 presidential election and later shared a close friendship with him, said, "Few Americans have been or ever will be able to match President Bush's record of service to the United States." Barack Obama wrote, "While our hearts are heavy today, they are also filled with gratitude." The 43rd president, George W. Bush, said in a statement, "George H.W. Bush was a man of the highest character and the best dad a son or daughter could ask for." President Trump praised Bush's character while attending the G20 summit in Argentina.
One thing that came through loud and clear, he's very proud of his family and very much loved his family. So he was a terrific guy, and he'll be missed, and he led a full life and a very exemplary life, too, I will say.
George H.W. Bush.
No place knew that better than his adopted hometown of Houston. But for residents like Mike Peterson, he was simply the president next door.
He brought people together. If you were a Democrat or a Republican, it didn't matter. And he brought leadership to both sides of the field.
After the president's body leaves Washington, D.C., he'll come here to St. Martin's Episcopal Church for a memorial service. It's the same church where his wife had a memorial service when she passed away earlier this year. Then he'll be laid to rest at his presidential library in College Station. Jeff?
All right, Omar, thank you very much. George H.W. Bush, before he was 25, could have written a book covering his World War II experiences, not to mention meeting Babe Ruth as captain of the Yale baseball team. But those were just the early chapters in an epic American story. It was 2011 when President Barack Obama awarded George H.W. Bush the highest honor a civilian can receive, the Medal of Freedom.
I'm a man who sees life in terms of missions, missions defined, and missions completed.
Bush enlisted in the Navy on his 18th birthday, becoming the Navy's youngest fighter pilot during World War II. In 1944, his plane was shot down in the Pacific.
I knew that if something didn't pick me up, I would be captured.
He returned home a hero. Just weeks later, he married Barbara Pierce.
I think he's the wisest, smartest, most decent, caring person I know.
After his graduation from Yale in 1948, they moved to Texas. He built an oil business, and together they built a family. They would have 6 children. Their first daughter died of leukemia at age 3.
They had a profound effect on me and on Barbara. And I think that horrible incident drew us even closer together. What a day, y'all.
In the early 60s, Bush pivoted to politics. He won 2 terms in the U.S. House, then served Presidents Nixon and Ford as UN ambassador, envoy to China, and director of the CIA. In 1980, he campaigned for the GOP presidential nomination, but instead became Ronald Reagan's vice president. 8 years later, he won his party's nomination.
I want a kinder and gentler nation.
Waging a successful presidential campaign against Democrat Michael Dukakis.
That I will faithfully execute.
The 41st president called for a new world order as the global scene shifted rapidly. The Berlin Wall fell, then the Soviet Union. In Panama, the president sent troops to overthrow the corrupt regime of Manuel Noriega.
The day of the dictator is over.
But a battle with another dictator had only just begun. When Saddam Hussein's Iraqi forces rolled into Kuwait, President Bush assembled a global coalition. Operation Desert Storm liberated Kuwait in 6 weeks. His popularity was sky high after the war, but it plunged as he ran for re-election against Bill Clinton and independent Ross Perot. The promise he made in his first campaign came back to haunt him.
Read my lips. No new taxes.
He did raise taxes, and amid an economic slowdown, he wound up losing in an electoral landslide.
I couldn't do what Ronald Reagan, my friend and predecessor, did so well, communicate effectively enough with the people, and that was my biggest shortcoming.
President Bush's legacies include a political dynasty. His son George served as governor of Texas, then president. Son Jeb was elected governor of Florida and was a presidential contender. But perhaps his life's greatest legacy is his marriage to Barbara. The Bushes were together for 73 years, longer than any other president and first lady in U.S. history.
Our family has had a front row seat for the most amazing love story.
At Barbara's funeral, Jeb Bush read a love letter his father wrote his mother on their wedding anniversary in 1994.
I've climbed perhaps the highest mountain in the world, but even that cannot hold a candle to being Barbara's husband.
At the G20 summit in Argentina today, President Trump said after he returns to Washington as a special tribute to former President Bush, he will send Air Force One to Houston to carry Mr. Bush's casket to Washington. Major Garrett has more tonight from Argentina.
We lost a president who truly was a wonderful person, a wonderful man, a great man.
Before a meeting with German Chancellor Angela Merkel at the G20, President Trump offered condolences to the Bush family.
He was just a high-quality man who truly loved his family.
Merkel recalled President Bush's steady leadership as the Cold War ended and a divided East and West Germany forged a new future.
He is the father, or one of the fathers, of the German unification, and we will never forget that.
The president spoke today with President Bush's sons and Mr. Trump's occasional rivals, Jeb and George W.
Jeb Bush is a low-energy person.
During the 2016 campaign, candidate Trump attacked the former Florida governor and the Bush political dynasty. As recently as July, Mr. Trump mocked the senior Bush's slogan and still running charitable foundation.
1,000 points of light. I never quite got that one.
The former president told an author in 2016 he did not like Mr. Trump, calling him a blowhard. The Bushes did not attend the Republican convention that nominated Mr. Trump or his inauguration as the nation's 45th president, although Bush 41 apologized for missing the latter. President Trump was not invited to Barbara Bush's funeral earlier this year, but First Lady Melania Trump did attend. Both Trumps will attend President Bush's funeral Wednesday. Today, the president said he canceled a scheduled press conference here out of respect for President Bush. He then turned his attention to a high-stakes trade meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping.
I think at some point we are going to end up doing something which is great for China and great for the United States.
President Trump said the death of former President Bush put a damper on talks with China. Even so, senior administration officials predicted enough progress would be made here to avert another round of tariffs and an intensification of hostilities between the countries. Jeff?
Major, thank you very much. For more on President George H.W. Bush now, we are so happy to have Bob Schieffer here with us tonight. Bob, you covered President Bush's runs in 80 and 88. What stood out the most for you?
You know, what I always will remember about him is his modesty. He was, I think, probably the most modest person who ever held the office, certainly in my lifetime. And that played so well when the Soviet Union was coming apart, when the Berlin Wall was falling, when communism was imploding. He never tried to brag about it. He kept the rhetoric low, and he kept the situation cool. And I think that had a tremendous impact on a very dicey situation.
And he was able to self-analyze, too. I mean, you heard that clip where he said, one of my failings was I didn't think I could communicate as well as Reagan did. That seems pretty remarkable.
It was for someone to say that. But the fact is, he was a much better public servant than he was a politician. And I think it came out of his upbringing. In his family, they were discouraged from ever bragging on any personal feat they might have accomplished. And so it was very difficult for him to get out on the stump and say, here's why I'm such a great guy. He never did that. And in today's politics, that's quite unusual.
He didn't want to write a book because he thought it would be bragging.
He was the first president of modern times, the first one that I remember that did not write a book about his presidency and give his version of events for history. But he said others would do that. Instead, he put together a book of thank you notes he had written to friends over the years, thanking them for their friendship. He probably had, you know, presidents, by the time they get to be president, they don't always have very many friends left, people that they can trust. I mean, it's just part of the job. He had thousands of friends. He liked them, he was a good friend to them, and they were a good friend to him.
So good to have you here, Bob.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you so much. We're going to have much more on President George H.W. Bush coming up here on the broadcast, and special coverage tomorrow. Margaret Brennan's guests on Face the Nation will include former Vice President Dick Cheney and former Secretary of State James Baker. Tomorrow night on 60 Minutes, 3 former presidents pay tribute to Bush 41. But up next here from Washington tonight, we do have an update from the earthquake zone in Alaska. We are back now from Washington, and crews are inspecting buildings and bridges in Anchorage, Alaska tonight after a powerful magnitude 7 earthquake. It caused severe damage and under hundreds of thousands in Alaska. Carter Evans is there.
Violent shaking rocked the city of Anchorage for more than 30 seconds. Ceilings collapsed, students dove under desks, and families scrambled for safety.
It was nuts. I mean, you could hear it, like glasses were shattering, things were flying off the wall.
Laura Butcher's security camera was rolling when the quake hit.
The mom instinct was get my child out of this house, and this house is going to collapse.
You could hear you screaming. What was going through your mind?
Is it happening again, the 1964 earthquake?
Because you've heard all about that.
Yeah, because my grandma, she survived it.
The strongest earthquake ever to hit North America.
The 9.2 magnitude quake in 1964 killed more than 100 people. Alaska Governor Bill Walker says stricter building codes saved lives this time.
It was amazing, the power behind what we saw. It was humbling, but I think most people felt, wow, this is a big earthquake without a loss of life.
Several major roads just crumbled when the earthquake struck. That hole is probably 20 feet deep. Governor Walker says the state is still assessing all the damage to infrastructure. Jeff?
Carter, thank you very much. A tornado swept through Missouri today. At least one person was killed in the town of Aurora. A number of homes were damaged. It ripped the side off this building and damaged vehicles at a car dealership. At least 2 people were killed in a plane crash today in Fort Lauderdale. It went into a building housing a therapy center for children with autism. 8 teachers and 5 children were inside. The kids are okay, but a teacher was hurt. Overseas in Paris, rising fuel prices sparked violent protests today. Buildings and cars were set on fire in what are being called the worst riots there in more than a decade. Graffiti was spread in the Arc de Triomphe. Police used tear gas on the crowd. More than 100 people were hurt. Hundreds more were arrested. That is all tonight for this special edition of the CBS Evening News. I'll be back here tomorrow from Washington. Good night.